Well, thanks to everybody for attending during this like most challenging of months when everybody seems to have conflicts of some kind or another. Why don't we go ahead and get started, since we've got like 20 different kinds of minutes to approve, and if anybody else joins, they can jump on. Do you want to call it, do the roll call, Todd?
Sure thing. Yep. Mary.
Here.
Catherine.
Here.
Ernest.
Here.
Jessica.
Here.
Wolfgang.
Here.
Tavia.
Here.
Andy.
Here.
Lindell.
Here.
And we'll note that we're expecting Sue and that Jeanette and Alex were not able to attend tonight.
All right. And so now we reach the portion of our meeting where we together recite our mission. So act as a strong
advocate to justice and equal opportunity
By
by providing
citywide leadership
and
and
guidance in the area
of
of civil rights. Thanks, everybody. Next up, we have matters by the public. If there are any members of the public who want to share now, you can use the raise hand function, and if you're on the phone, you can hit *9.
We have 2 members of the public. I don't see any hands raised at the moment, but you're welcome to do so. Thanks for joining us.
We will have another opportunity for matters by the public later in the agenda if you join later, or if you'd like to speak up later in the meeting. All right. Well, why don't we move into this very long and impressive list of minutes that need to be approved? And I think we all owe Todd a great a vote of thanks for the enormous amount of work that went into that. And I suppose we can go through each of these to approve the minutes. Obviously, there are lots of us who weren't at all of these committee meetings, and so I'm not sure who was at each one such that they will want to vote to approve or not, but we'll just take them up sequentially. So the first set of minutes to be approved are the Housing Committee meeting minutes of March 31st. And I can pull that up and identify the folks that were there.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Great. Next set of minutes to be voted upon are the Legal Representation Committee meeting minutes of May 6th, 2021.
Small detail, but I think that was an afternoon meeting, and it currently says that it was supposed to be held at 6:30.
So if I'm looking at that correctly, that's just Jessica and Catherine who were there? Is that correct?
It didn't last long. Yeah.
Okay, well then I think
What happened?
do you, and since we're using Martha's rules, do you want to give me a thumbs up if you'd like to approve those minutes? Okay, or Catherine, you could speak up. All right, great. Okay. Next is the Community Engagement Committee of June 3rd. Roll call was Jessica, Lindell, and Andy. Thumbs up if you want to approve those minutes. All right, great. Good work. These really were a lot of minutes. Okay. Legal Representation Committee meeting minutes of June 3rd. The meeting was postponed and not called to order. So do those have to be voted upon?
Well, you just gotta make sure you saw them and said, yep, we agree and approve. Unfortunately, I have to post minutes even for meetings that were not called to order, but publicly noticed, I think.
I'm just not sure how we vote on them if nobody was there to to say that it happened.
If the commission as a whole approves of the minutes as written, I believe you can approve those and move on.
All right, we have some thumbs up for approving the minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. Next up, our accessibility committee meeting, June 4th, 2021.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
All those in favor? I think that was Wolfgang and Sue, so we are approved. Okay, housing committee meeting minutes of June 4th. Catherine Mary Ernest. Catherine? Thumbs up. Good job. Okay. 6/17 HRC regular meeting minutes. All right, that's all of us. Thumbs up if you approve the minutes. Okay. Oh, Sue, thanks. I see you there. Okay. Anyone opposed to the approval of the minutes of the June meeting? Jessica, were you saying you were opposed? Were you?
No.
Okay. All right, those meeting minutes are approved. The HRC regular meeting minutes of July 15th. Approval? Any opposition to approval of the minutes of July 15th? Okay, thank you. Next up, the Community Engagement Committee meeting minutes of April 5th. Sorry, I'm trying to find those that. Sorry, I don't see that. I'm not sure who was at that meeting.
It's just one of those ones that says wasn't called to order, I believe. Isn't that correct?
Oh, is that why I'm missing it?
Yeah, was it the August 8th
August 8th.
at 7?
All right, so do we have an approval of those minutes for the meeting that was not called to order? Any opposition? All right, those minutes are approved. Finally, the August 5th Housing Committee meeting minutes. Thumbs up for approval?
Mm.
Okay.
My thumb is up, even though my
All right.
video won't stay on.
All right, no problem. And any opposition? All right, thank you all very much. That was a particular thanks to Todd for an enormous amount of work.
Wolfgang's note on the change of time on the whatever the second meeting. I think I had the default 6:30 up there, and I think it was a different time. So I will make that change before posting.
All right, thank you. Next up on our business matters is the update from the chair. I do have a few smallish updates. As you all saw, I did get out a statement in honor of August 12th, 2017. My apologies that I got it out later than I had hoped for. On that same day, I also sent a letter to City Council and the city manager with regard to the right to counsel. And I did speak at the Monday council meeting to try to connect those things and to suggest that the best way to honor the people who sacrificed so much on August 12th was to commit to the creation of a more racially just and equitable city. And that part of that was ensuring that tenants in eviction proceedings did have a right to a lawyer. I think there remain, from my perspective, kind of 3 unfinished issues on that front, although I shared sort of my gratitude, our gratitude that City Council had taken some significant steps in allocating some money to providing lawyers for tenants in eviction proceedings, but the council has allocated less money than we suggested was necessary. We suggested after some investigation that it would require at least $460,000 in the first year, and then additional money in future years. And the city is planning to allocate $300,000. And there was, at least at the time that I was involved in these discussions, some question about whether they would make a 3-year commitment. And then finally, I suggested in the letter to council that it would make sense to codify this as an ordinance, to actually say that we are committing to providing lawyers to tenants in eviction proceedings, which the city has not done and has not, I think, frankly, seriously explored doing by, by analyzing what is possible under state law and whether any changes would be needed to state law to make this happen. So that's certainly work that I want us to follow up on, because we haven't made a long-term commitment to do this. We've made a short-term commitment to do this, and that's a whole lot better than where we were last year, but it's not, I think, where we should be. So certainly the housing committee can continue to work on that, and I'm happy to have the commission as a whole be engaged in that matter. If folks have questions or comments about that, feel free to speak up now, or I have a few more updates, but if anyone has questions or comments about that particular issue, let me know.
What justification did council give for dropping it to 300,000?
No justification, no response. The only response I got to that letter, or, nobody responded when I spoke at council. The only response I got was from Councillor Snook, who asked me if I was aware of kind of specific statutory authority for a city council to enact that kind of ordinance. And I said, I had not done a legal analysis. I had talked to the, it's called the National Coalition on the Civil Right to Counsel, who told me that they had done an analysis opining that states with the Dillon rule, as Virginia has, could enact such an ordinance. But I told Councilor Schnook that it was my understanding that probably the next step was to ask for a legal opinion about what the city would be permitted to do under current state law versus whether changes would be needed. But I did not get any explanation for why the amount was reduced. And the other piece of information that I got that I found a little bit perplexing was the lack of commitment to the 3 years based upon wanting Albemarle County to similarly commit to the program in order for them to make that 3-year commitment. As I said in the letter, I thought, of course, we would want the county to do this. That makes a lot of sense, and it would, protect tenants in the county. But I'm not sure why city residents' rights should be dependent on what actions the county chooses to take. And so that didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I didn't get a response to that point either. So I guess, that the short version of that is that I think we made, along with lots of other people who were involved in this advocacy, we've made some really good first steps. And I hope we continue to push this through so that tenants in future years will have this kind of protection. And then at the last Housing Committee Subcommittee, we spent a lot of time talking about the new zoning proposals and what that means and kind of what we understood about it. And I think we concluded that we needed to bring in some people to help us understand both what is proposed and kind of what the process is going to be. And so I invited at the request of the Housing Committee, Sunshine Mathen from the Piedmont Housing Alliance and Dan Rosenzweig from Habitat for Humanity and also the director of CRHA to our next meeting, for our next full meeting of the commission, the September meeting. The director of CRHA was not available, but Sunshine and Dan Rosenzweig will both be here. And they've kind of put together a presentation on the new housing proposals and the new zoning proposals, and we'll be able to spend about an hour with us to kind of walk us through that and to answer whatever questions we have. And then sort of on that same housing related issue, I think at the Housing Committee, Catherine mentioned that Chantel had been the Human Rights Commission kind of designee to attend the CLIC, Charlottesville Low Income Housing Coalition meetings. And we no longer have kind of a representative regularly attending those meetings. I tried to find out this afternoon, but too late, what time, what day and time the meetings are, so I could share that here, and I wasn't able to get the information. So if somebody knows that, please speak up. But if there is, someone here who is interested in regularly attending those meetings, I think that would be fantastic. And depending on when they are, which I will figure out, I'm perfectly willing to attend when I'm able. So next on,
To
yeah,
clarify, is it planning commission meetings?
no, it's the Charlottesville Low Income Housing
yeah.
Coalition CLIC,
Yeah.
the CLIC meetings. I think Chantel had regularly attended those, and now she's in Atlanta. Well, if anyone is interested in attending those, I'll send out information about when I find out when the regular meeting is, to let people know. We can see who is sort of willing and available. And then we had talked, I think, at our last meeting about reaching out to the PCRB, and I did that and asked whether they would like to have a joint meeting with us, and was told that they were interested in that. And then Todd, can you help me kind of understand and explain what the city's response was about why they thought this was not the appropriate time to go ahead and set that up?
Yeah, I'll do my best with that. I think the idea right now to have a public meeting, a joint meeting between the two commissions is challenging because they are still in the process of writing their ordinance, and they're in sort of the process in working with the city attorney's office and council to figure out what their charge is. And so to have that as a joint public meeting when that remains undefined, I think they felt that might not be the best idea at this time, just because it would be pretty confusing. So that is my understanding. I know Ashley is here too, if she had anything else, if any corrections on that statement about that, but that is my understanding. There she is.
No, that is correct. So I know that part of what you all wanted to speak about from the letter was the work that you all were doing in analyzing police policies, which is also a permission that the PCRB has. And so the thought was, because they actually voted this is it this week? I'm losing track of time. They voted recently on the ordinance that they have submitted to council for council's consideration. You may wish to pause only to see what permissions they will end up inevitably getting so that you all can collaborate appropriately, just because right now we don't know what council will end up approving for their ordinance.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley, for that explanation. So if folks want, additional follow-up related to, police policies, police budget issues, kind of the conversations that we've had, we should talk about what that might look like. We don't currently have a committee that's kind of addressing that particular issue. So if we want to take action, further communication, then we should talk about that here, I think, in this full commission meeting.
And to add one more detail to that, I believe, and I may have mentioned this in a previous meeting, but in conversations with the chief, she was open to a dialogue with the commission about the policy work you've already done, and I think suggested checking to make sure that the policies that the commission already has reviewed and provided comments on are the ones that that are currently in practice, because they may have been updated since then. And just in reviewing our previous minutes, when the commission did this work last time, I think it sort of stalled out in November of 2019, when all of those recommendations, all the draft recommendations, Charlene had taken to city attorney for review before you presented them to the chief. And I think the answer at that time, it was similar in the sense that PCRB was sort of forming then, and the city attorney was like, wait a second, while they're forming, and then once they form, we can figure it out. But I think since then, Ashley and I had a conversation with Lisa Robertson about that, and she said, just go forth and talk to the chief about that. I think that would be fine. So there is that potential opening to have that discussion. And if you want to review the current policies to make sure they are the same ones that you already provided comments on, that might be helpful in preparation.
And I think I would just add, it was definitely very encouraged from our city attorney that we make sure that you all have the opportunity to present the hard work that you did on looking at those policies. So it wasn't just a go ahead. It was no, please, you all have done the work. Please go ahead and make sure that, chief has an opportunity to look at the work and suggestions you all have made.
So I will say that when Todd and I were looking at the version with the idea of resending it to the chief, I was not clear that the version that we had was the final version, because it still had a number of sort of internal comments in it. And so we didn't send it on. I did send a note to the police chief, and I, thanked her for attending. Apologized that she had indicated she had not received the previous email, but we did not resend those materials because, of course, I wasn't around, and it wasn't obvious to us that was a final version. So I'm know that Chantel was really involved in that, but I'm hoping that somebody else who's still here was involved in that and can help us identify whether those in fact were the final versions.
It is Catherine Spear was involved in that, and she's not on the board anymore.
Yeah, and I was in those meetings as well. So I might be able, I think it's possible that I will see if I have other versions. Like, I think Catherine might have sent emails at some point with copies rather than have them in the Google Doc drive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would be great. I just didn't want to send on a version that might not have been the final version, because it did
Sure.
still appear to be a work in progress.
I was involved in maybe even prior to that particular document that doesn't look finalized. So I know I looked at it and worked on it. It's probably somewhere in a bag here in my living room.
Well, could I ask y'all, I think that's Catherine and Sue, to kind of do a little digging after this meeting to see
Yeah.
whether you can identify any version. And I'm glad to
Yeah.
draft another, note and send them on to the police chief when we are satisfied that we have the right version.
I can do that.
And note that the ones that I had and understood to be as far as the commission had taken the work are the ones that are in the 2019 annual report. So if you want to look and compare what you might have in your files to what I believe the city attorney had to look at, I believe it's the same thing that's in the 2019 annual report. But I could be wrong. Those are just the ones that were provided to me to include in that report. So the annual report, you can find that on, if you go to in the box thing, it's also on our website now, the Human Rights page, not the Human Rights Commission page, but the Human Rights page, Human Rights documents, all the annual reports are there. So you can find them pretty easy.
And then finally, I believe, Todd, that we had said that our next meeting was likely to be in person, and I am wondering whether that has changed with the new COVID numbers.
Great question. I believe that it has changed. I've been told, but I have not seen the official notice that it has changed. But I've been told informally that that we are not meeting in person next week. I was thinking that we might get an announcement as to confirming that. And I said next week, next month. But I haven't seen anything yet unless I missed it. But I believe that they're pushing it to at least till October, if not later. But I'm just seeing did you all see the chat? Was that the chat that just popped up? I believe so. Delayed until mid-October. There you go.
All right, so our September meeting then will once again be virtual. All right. I think that brings me to the conclusion of my updates, unless folks have any comments or questions about any of those items. Okay, if not, then I can turn it over to Todd for the Office of Human Rights staff update.
Thanks, Mary. So you'll see that the chart is once again present in my report, which is thanks in very, very large part to Jenny and Lily, all the hard work that they've done trying to read through all my chicken scratch notes and enter it into the database, which is just tremendous. If you look at that, I think the highlight there is even the month before I opened the office, which was in June, we opened it like the first week of June. The number of incoming contacts had already doubled from basically the previous 4 months, and it's continued to go up. You can see in June it had tripled compared to the previous 4 months. So that is to say, things are coming, and I think the more we are able to be accessible, the more people will basically take advantage of that. What that also means is that the work is pretty voluminous right now, I guess is the best way to say it. I think I have 7 active cases, which is more than we've ever had at once. Most investigators handle about 5 a year. So we've got 7 right now, in addition to all the other contacts that we're getting. So the work exists despite maybe not being out in the community all that much, but people are finding us and contacting us. So that's something to note. Just scroll down a little bit.
Do you have an explanation for what caused this? I mean, it looks kind of like a surge. It's the numbers are really quite big. Like,
Yeah,
I
I think the accessibility makes a difference, right? When people can come to the office, a lot of this is walk-ins, right? So, yeah, and we have the we're answering the office phone, my cell phone, texts, emails, and walk-ins. And so that bumps it up. And it could also be that more people are contacting us in different ways, right? Previously, they couldn't text me, now they text me. So that also, all that gets counted. So yeah, I think those two factors, the opening of the office and having more ways for people to get in touch makes a difference. But yeah, and all the raw data can show you all that if you can look and see how many people are contacting us in what way. But yeah, the other thing I was going to point out is that Jessica actually came out did outreach with us at South First Street, which was good. We're going to do something similar to that on September 24th at West Haven from 3:30 to 5:30. So if anybody wants to join, let me know. That's September 24th, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. at West Haven. And basically what we do when we go to those things, it varies each time a little bit, depending on the vibe. But sometimes we'll do a little bit of door to door. Sometimes we'll do some tabling. The group that we're collaborating with is also just doing some informal community cleanup work and just chatting with residents, picking up wrappers and stuff as we go, just to sort of be good participants in the community. But so that's happening. If anyone wants to come, I see Jessica said you want to come. That's great. Thank you. Love to have you there. Other than that, you can certainly look at the rest of the notes there. I can tell you things that have happened since I put that report together. I did get a response from Eric Steinecker from HUD with his comments on the rather large redraft of the ordinance. I read through his comments and I have a lot of questions, so I didn't bother to attach it because there was a lot to take in still. So I'm going to kind of review that, create my own list of questions, do some of the revisions he suggested, and then I'll share that with you all when I get some feedback as well from him. But it's moving forward. He's been very supportive in that regard, just providing guidance as we redraft the ordinance. I think I want to bring it up too is, I'm going to try to push this as quickly as we can so that we can get this in front of council maybe before year's end. I think that would be ideal. It's a lot of work to get through. You all will have to do a thorough read over and adopt it as the commission for then providing to council. But I think we can probably do it if we stay focused on it. So just, if you haven't read it already, just dig in a little bit. It's going to change again, but be thinking about the ordinance as it relates to the FAP and all that red stuff that I put in there. But then there's some other changes that I'm also doing in there in terms of like subdividing sections by protected activity, because I think we're at the point where we need to do that. And it was suggested when we did the last round of ordinance revisions, but we weren't quite prepared to do that. I think now is the time to do that, especially because we need to isolate those fair housing regulations so that if we have to change them, it doesn't affect anything else in the ordinance. So there you go. Other things in there, you probably got the email about the emails. I know some folks, few of you have contacted me already and expressed that it may be a little difficult, or you've called me to try to get the code and then I called you back and we're playing phone tag. We're going to be doing that. That's probably what's going to be happening over the course of the next week. If you do have like technical difficulties logging on to office.com, like if you have Office already an account and you just keep getting your own Office account when you try to sign in, call IT. They're really good with that stuff and they'll walk you through it. They're there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I think I put that number in your email, but they're willing to help walk you through it. And then just as best you can, give me a call and I'll try to give you that code over the phone. I think they didn't want it shared any other way, just to try and maximize security. And then also just sign up, if you will, for the 15-minute security training with Kathy, because she offered to do that. I think that's about all. Two other things to put on in your hat. Think about recruitment. I think coming up next year, there's a lot of folks moving off the commission. So if you want to see your commission continue and you have some thoughts about people who might be awesome commissioners, encourage them to apply. So that's one thing.
Todd, what's the timing for that? Somebody actually did contact me and say they were interested and I wasn't sure
Yeah,
what the time frame was for applying.
I'd have to look on the city website right now to see if they're currently accepting applications for boards and commissions. The best way to do that is to just check regularly
Okay.
under the boards and commissions page, because it opens and closes from time to time. But yeah, that's the way to do it. And
Okay.
but I can check it out and send you a follow-up email if you'd like.
Yeah, I can do that. That's all right.
Okay. And I think the other thing to think about is if we are going to try to pursue like a larger project, I know that is also coming up to think about. So just kind of maybe mull that over if in terms of the mechanics of what you want to look into as a full group, or and how you want to do that, who we need to enlist to help with any kind of research like that. I think it's going to sneak up on us probably before we know it. We staffing wise, we probably can't do a lot of research for you. So we maybe want to think about community partners that can do the research that you want to do, if that's what we're going to pursue. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions, let me know.
So I do have a question. I don't know if this is for you, Todd, or perhaps for Ashley, but given the volume of work, I know there had been some sort of discussion or mulling the idea that in addition to the director position, that there could be additional positions for the Office of Human Rights. And I'm not sure whether that's kind of already a real proposal or whether that's kind of scuttlebutt, or if you all could give any kind of update on that.
I can take it, Todd. So when I came in, the fiscal year 22 budget had been approved and set. And so in that budget, it has allocations for 2 team members for the Office of Human Rights. However, every season ends up being budgeting season. So we are in preparations for fiscal year 23. And in that fiscal year, I do plan to ask for additional staff. Now, may the odds ever be in my favor when I do that, but I will ask every year until I get it, because I am persistent. But it would be a new ask. And I don't know how, at this point, I can't tell you, oh, I know there's going to be room in the budget, or I know there's not going to be room in the budget, because we are just now getting started on trying to formulate the fiscal year 23 budget. But I do plan on working with the office and its staff members to make sure that we do an appropriate ask for that additional staff and justification. And then everyone cross all fingers and toes. The goal is to have more help. And I've been spreading far and wide the work of the commission, as well as the work that Todd is completing, very much making sure people know that 7 cases is odd. It is a lot, and he is doing it all by himself. So.
Well, I feel quite certain that the commission would want to join those efforts and be supportive of those efforts in some way. And, I'm not sure when that makes most sense for us to, kind of speak up in support of, a request for a well-staffed, vibrant office. Because we're all enormously impressed by the volume of work that Todd's able to pull off, but there should be other folks there.
Absolutely. And as I am still, I think I still get to count as new and shiny. I am learning more about that process as well. My spidey sense says January-ish is when it really starts heating up in the budgeting process. I, of course, will be in the room to make sure that I advocate with our city manager. But most likely, I would imagine you all may wish to be advocating with council, and I can just make sure that when it's starting to process through to them, so you all can make a determination as to how you would like to formulate any comments you may have for them. And there also are public meetings as well about the budget specifically.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for Todd? Well, thank you, Todd, for all of your work. Okay, next up on our agenda is a work session and the committee reports. And first up, we have the Accessibility Committee.
Okay, so because the board committee was not able to meet this month, but I did have a great conversation with CBS. Their grant coordinator got us some really cool data using.
Wolfgang, it's really hard to hear you.
Yeah, your
Sound.
audio is really bad.
How about now?
There you go.
I put you on my headset so I could hear you, but more important that you hear me, I guess. Okay, so we were not able to meet last month, but I had a great conversation with Sean Barreras. They shared some of the data they have on schools, using school data as a proxy variable to indicate that the US Census data has drastically underreported the number of Spanish-speaking individuals within the city and the county. And so I'm using that data to try and do the same estimates with low English proficient individuals within the city. International Rescue Committee is trying to get me some of their data, but that's slow because, refugees are kind of going through it right now, and IRC Charlottesville is very involved in supporting that. So we're making progress on the language access plan, drafting it, but we haven't been able to meet. Sue, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, because we haven't been able to meet. And it's kind of hard to get in touch, to get to see people at neighborhood development services, and they're doing reorganization over there too. So I'm not even sure anymore who to talk to. But I'm looking forward to our next attempt to meet.
Yep, I think that's it. Thanks, folks.
Great, thanks. Todd, did we set up kind of standing times for each of the committees so we can maximize the likelihood that we're able to meet?
Yeah, we roughly said that we would use this, what was it, the first and second Thursdays, starting at 6:30 for committee meetings. So I believe Brian's aware of that. So if you want to do it, we can. I don't think we necessarily designated which was which. We could just basically, well, it is actually helpful to know which committee is going to meet when, because I have to post the agendas separately. So yeah, if you want to set that up, that'd be great.
Okay. Next on our list is the Community Engagement Committee.
Yes,
We also
Jessica.
weren't.
Go ahead, Jessica. I didn't know if you were.
We weren't able to meet either. It was just me and Todd, and we didn't call to order.
Okay. Catherine, housing.
I think you've basically updated the housing committee meeting from last time, right? The biggest decision was to invite folks to our next meeting.
All right. And then finally, the Legal Representation Committee. Now, I saw material from them, so I'm fairly certain they've been meeting.
I do not believe they met.
But did that document just, or that, proposed resolution, just somebody created that.
Somebody created that. That was presented at the very first Legal Representation Committee meeting. I don't think we've ever been able to get back to it. So I just included it in the main agenda packet for you all to think about.
Okay. Any other updates, questions, comments about for the committees? All right.
Do y'all have a sense of when you want to meet again so that we can set that up in advance?
I just sent you an email, Todd. Sue
you
and I are
did?
fine for the first Thursday in September.
It's 6:30 or 7:30.
6:30?
Okay,
I read Sue's lips. There we go. 6:30 it is.
okay. Anyone else? Oh, your email just arrived right after you said that. So any takers for the 7:30 on the first Thursday of September?
Housing, I'll take that.
Okay. And do you want you try to do half an hour meetings? Do you want the full hour? So you guys start at 7:30, Catherine?
Isn't that a question for Wolfgang?
I guess it is. Yeah. I guess that is. Yeah.
So we would start at 6:30 and go till 7. That works for me.
6:30 to 7
Oh,
or
Sue's
6:30
making
to
a face.
7:30. It's up to you.
Sue, do you want the full? I can't hear you, Sue.
That's because I was on, no, I was still muted. Depending on, who we're able to get in touch with prior to that, maybe we can do this first one or this next one in just a half an hour.
Okay.
That's probably fine.
So I'll set it for 6:30 for accessibility and 7 p.m. for housing. Any takers on the second Thursday? We have 2 other committees.
I'm not sure if it works for me yet, but should we go ahead and do that one, Jessica and Lindell, for
Yeah.
the public engagement?
You want to
6:30,
set it for 6:30?
What's the date again, just to confirm? Let me just-
second Thursday.
Second Thursday. Let me just make
Thursday.
sure.
Yeah.
That should work. Oh, actually, the first, what time would we be talking about? Because the very first one I am not able to. September 9th. Otherwise, it should be fine.
So at 6:30, you can't on September 9th, but
That's
on
correct.
7:30 you could?
7:30, no.
Okay, because the first Thursday is already taken by your other 2 committees.
So are we talking about a recurring second Thursday?
But we could set them up as recurring. We haven't gotten that far yet, I don't think.
Okay,
I think just one time there.
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do the 9th, and I really would like to be with you if at all possible.
Todd, can we wait? Because Jeanette is also not here. So maybe we can reach out to her and see if that time works.
Sure. Yeah.
But I just want to keep having these meetings and then none of us can actually meet.
Yeah, that is, I don't want to, yeah. It probably feels funny to do that in past minutes that say didn't convene, right? So
Is there
understand.
any possibility to have the meetings earlier in the day?
For me, it is.
Because earlier would work better on that Thursday.
Yeah, I can reach out to communications and see if they can do it during the day.
Anytime that day up until 5:30 works for me.
Okay. I don't know if Lasheen, if you can confirm that now, you probably can't. You probably have to check in with your team, right? And she might not be able to hear me.
I'm here. Brian or Joe would have to confirm. Unfortunately, I don't do the scheduling. But I
Okay.
would love to accommodate you guys during the day.
Thanks, Lasheen. Any particular time you'd like me to ask for during the 9th?
Anything works for me.
Okay.
Just any time before 4:30 for me.
Okay, I'll propose something for the afternoon. I think there's another Zoom webinar in the morning, so I know that at least. So I'll ask about after 1 p.m. say between 1 and 5.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, it'll have to be before 4:30 for me, but yeah.
Okay, I'll
1
say
and
1.
4:30 then, yeah.
Yeah, between 1 and 4:30, no problem. And as far as the legal representation committee, I don't believe Catherine, you were on that with me. Who else was on that? I can't recall off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
was it the two of you? Okay. Is there any interest? So, I mean, maybe I could bring this back to the full commission. You could either consider that resolution as a full commission, or if you want it subdivided into a committee meeting to workshop it a little bit more, you can. I think we had a pending discussion about maybe what perhaps the UVA Office of Equity and Inclusion was doing. So whatever you think, let me know.
Catherine, were you ever able to look into that, what UVA is doing? Or do you
I
think?
was.
it's been-
I was, I mean, we can talk about it and I don't need to take up time here.
Okay.
Um,
Do you want to schedule something for the 9th?
I can't do the 9th.
Okay.
But let me ask you something.
Mhm.
If we have 2 hours on the 1st, if we could have 2 1-hour meetings, can we have 3 30-minute meetings?
Yeah, or potentially more than that. Yeah, if they were willing to go a little bit later. Yeah. You want to try to add more things on the 2nd?
So could we just make it at 7:30?
Yeah.
Would that work for other people? Are you
think it's
making, it, Jessica?
Yeah, it's hard with kids at that time, but I could try to make it.
No, we can do it at a different time.
Okay.
It's not my favorite time either, so.
Isn't community
Fine.
engagement
Yeah, we
meeting that
gotta
same night
admit.
too? Which meetings are meeting that night? It's community accessibility. I'm
Housing,
asking because maybe Sue and I could switch to the 9th. That would open up a space for y'all to meet on the 2nd.
well, no, that doesn't really help Jessica, though.
This means you could do it earlier.
Yeah, 6:30 doesn't make that much difference, does it for you, Jessica? Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Still does. Um,
Would you like me to ask about another daytime, which if I was able to get a larger block on the 9th, would that be helpful during the day?
Sure.
Okay, so I will ask about that for both for 2 committees, and I'll see if we can get at least I'll ask for 2 hours, and if that gets us, that'll allow us to have a lot of flexibility there.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Lots of stuff happening. The next thing on our agenda is the Resolution A21-1 HRC Advocacy and Action. And Todd, I'm not sure. I mean, I appreciate that this appeared in our package, but I'm not sure precisely where it came from or who did the work to make this happen. So maybe you can tell us about that.
Sure, I'll fill you in. So it was probably, it's many months ago. I had sent this, I think, to you and Catherine to consider because there was discussion about taking action between meetings. And in consulting with city attorney's office about that, the suggestion was having a resolution that states the way in which you take action between meetings is helpful, because you can then cite that resolution when you make a statement or write a letter, such that, as per resolution, yada, yada, the Human Rights Commission issued the following public statement. I think that is, just so there's no question about your process in doing that. So that is the reason I put that together. I think it was probably 6 or 7 months ago as a draft for you to consider. It's probably needs to be changed, but just putting it back up there so that you can get something on the books so that you have a procedure.
Why do you think it needs to be changed?
Mostly because I haven't read it since I wrote it. It's been a long time, and I know there's a lot of discussion about Facebook, and I don't know. I can't remember what all is on there at the moment. I can pull it back up again, but also just change from what standpoint you're looking at that from now, because I wrote it a long time ago. So that's all.
Have folks had the opportunity to look at the resolution and, do we want to talk about it now? Sue, you raising your hand? Okay.
Yeah, I actually was glad to see that because I haven't been sure when we've said, the most recent thing that you sent out, I'm going, oh, I didn't get a chance to read it. So if we have a resolution that basically sets out a procedure for that, I'm much happier. Otherwise, I sometimes don't want to see my name on something if I haven't had a chance to actually think about it or look at it or even know what's being said. So I'm quite happy with some sort of resolution that gives us a rationale for making statements in between meetings that we haven't had a chance to discuss and actually see. I'm somewhat of a visual person, and so I do like to see and read what is attempting to be done. I'm relatively happy with this. Because I'm not really sure what we want to take it in one of the, I guess it's a first further resolved clauses. A systemic human or civil rights issue requires prompt action. Well, sometimes we have wanted to just make what I would call just a happy statement that, yeah, we're glad to see this, that, and the other happening, not that isn't related to a systemic human or civil rights issue requiring prompt action. So that's where I'm coming from on this. I do like the idea of having something in place so that we can, in fact, make strong advocacy action statements in between meetings. But I'm concerned about what constitutes strong advocacy action statements, not just and if there's some way to actually word it so that you can mom and apple pie sort of statement, if I can put it that way. So anyway, I happen to think that this sort of thing is necessary. I'm glad to see that the legal department thinks so too. That way I'm not going to go, where the heck did that come from? And why didn't I see it? And who drafted it, etc. Anyway, that's where I am on this.
Other thoughts? Are folks interested in, trying to modify that this evening, or what is the approach? No. Okay, I'm seeing people shaking their heads. What is the kind of the will of folks to get this in the format that we want to deal with it? Wolfgang?
Yeah, I like it as written. I think it addresses a huge gap that we've had before, where we hesitate to take action between meetings because we all want a consensus, but at the same time, I trust our chair to act on our behalf when there is a systemic human or civil rights issue that's pressing that we want to take action on. We don't want to hold back from it. So I feel like this addresses that issue and allows us to move faster. The only thing I would probably want to add, like Todd said, is in the may include one of the more following methods of action is to include like managing of a social media platform and making it as vague as that. Otherwise, I think this is great. Thanks, Todd.
I'm wondering if we should take out the word systemic, because I could see there's like a one-off issue we want to comment on, and it would give us a little more latitude if there's, one egregious thing that happens that we want to talk about. I mean, I think whoever drafted this, if that was you, Todd, or the legal department, did a fine job with it, and I'm comfortable with it if we, you know, want to tweak it right now, or if people want additional time to review it, that's also okay.
I'm
I'm
happy.
inclined to agree with you, Mary, on the systemic, because that's the word that just stood out for me and didn't relate to some of the things that we've actually tried to do in terms of statements.
I also want to comment in our community engagement committee. This is something that we were thinking to look at and make edits. So maybe, and I know Jeanette was potentially working on something, but she never sent it out to us. So I'd like an opportunity for our ad hoc committee to discuss it further. If that's okay with everyone.
So two things to respond to Jessica. This was sent to the engagement committee to draft something similar for what the engagement committee might do in terms of its outreach. This was just a template to use to draft a separate resolution, but this one is in particular references what the chair should do between.
Okay.
So that's why that was shared. And I do believe Jeanette actually crafted a draft format for statements, which is a little bit different. She sent that out, I think, ahead of the last engagement committee meeting, but because it didn't convene, you didn't have a chance to discuss it. But good point. I think that this can serve as a model for whatever you want to do with that particular resolution that you're working on to bring to the commission. And yeah, and I am happy to take out the systemic piece and add the social media piece at the bottom there. And I noticed Ashley just sent me a message. I think the reason we put systemic in there was because that was the kind of the focus based on the ordinance of what the commission does. However, it's kind of, you have kind of this weird, mismatch of words, because ultimately you're also a strong advocate for human and civil rights. It doesn't say systemic human and civil rights. So I don't think that there's any harm in removing that word if it allows you to be a little bit more nimble. So yeah, if that helps.
Well, with those two additions, I'm happy for us to take a vote on this now. Though if, as Jessica suggests, perhaps folks would rather have an additional opportunity to review it. Let me know your thoughts.
I say we go ahead.
All right, well, with the
Inclined to think if the community engagement committee has already been looking at this sort of issue, I really would like to have them weigh in on this particular document, if it overlaps some of what they're doing.
So
Lindell.
thanks. So I think that, as Todd pointed out, this particular thing is a little bit different than what the engagement committee is working on. It's similar and related, but a little bit different. And I feel comfortable moving ahead with this one, knowing that the engagement committee is can continue to work on something similar to fit what we are proposing to do. But that's my opinion.
Jessica, do you have thoughts about whether these two overlap significantly and this one needs to wait?
I don't know. Just with two other commissioners not being here. I mean, I know we're a quorum, we can move forward. I just would like to wait because I can't find the draft that Jeanette sent out, and I want to be able to do that comparison and contrast between what we were trying to do in this document. So I would just like to wait, but that's me. I'm one of everyone else here, so.
I don't have a problem waiting till the next.
That's fine.
To vote on it. I mean, we've been sort of stumbling along without it for a bit, and we'll put it on the agenda to vote on for the next meeting then.
Thank you.
All right, and then let's see. The next resolution to be discussed is Resolution HR 21-1, legal representation funds for parties to a complaint.
And since I dropped that in the agenda packet, again, that was the idea, being that the legal representation committee hadn't been able to meet for a while. So didn't know if the whole commission wanted to consider that, or if you want to move it back to committee. Your choice.
Well, it's not, it doesn't include a number or recommendation at this moment. And I guess the question is, what work needs to be done in order for a number to be included, right? If we're going to propose a budget item, we probably want to have some sense of what we think that is, or at least, some framework for thinking about it. And so I'm not sure what needs to happen for us to get to that place. So I'm happy to hear from members of that committee if you all have a thought about how we get there. It can either be committee work, or we could take that up as a commission, but it seems to me we have to fill in that blank.
I totally agree with you, Mary, that I can't approve something that is missing numbers. And if the legal representation committee is the entity that is most likely to be able to come up with those, rather than all of us throwing out a number and talking about it, I'm more than happy to let them look at it, and hopefully they can have it ready for us by the next meeting. Otherwise, I'm quite in favor of it, assuming that the red lines are turned into black lines.
Well, so are there folks from that committee who participated in the creation of this draft, and what do folks think?
I think Todd essentially wrote this. This is Todd. So I don't want to claim work that we certainly didn't do. My only concern is this. I think this is really important. We have a whole other sort of funding issue that we're also pursuing, which is, the legal counsel with the evictions issue. Does it make sense for us to pursue two at the same time? Or do we get one funded and then the other? Right? Like, just sort of in terms of actually being effective, what's our best course of action?
That's a good question. I mean, arguably, if we got the, right to counsel passed in the form that we think makes sense, it could serve as a model for other, kind of funding proposals. But
I mean, I think this originally came about, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, like, now we have right to counsel, that seemed to be moving ahead, but there's this whole other area where we've got no legal representation at all, and it's also creating some issues. Am I correct? Or did I make that up?
Yeah, close. It emerged out of, I think, a discussion that Alex and Wolfgang had when they were reviewing the public hearing procedures, and noting that, basically respondents would be bringing in counsel to a public hearing in which you were serving as a judiciary body, and there was no provision in the ordinance for the complainant to have any representation. And typically, most of the people that I've received complaints from are typically, based on my assessment, obviously this is my opinion, in no financial position to seek counsel, and finding pro bono counsel can be quite difficult. I've done it on a couple of occasions, but it is hard. And so having some sort of fund that allowed for them to have counsel both in the, and then extrapolating that, not just in public hearings, but legal advice throughout the complaint process, whether it be through if it entered into mediation or some other conciliatory dialogue. They may want to ask, hey, should I accept the offer that's coming from the respondent? As an investigator, I can't say yes or no because I have to remain neutral, but I try to guide them to people that might be able to give them that answer without compromising the investigation. So that was the intent, to just provide a more equitable, process. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess I totally understand that. I just, yeah, I don't know if I'm thinking small by saying, let's do one thing and then let's do the other. Maybe we should be asking for it all, or maybe it's all one ask. And we should be saying, council, we want, city council, we want you to be fully funding this right to counsel and providing additional funds for this other, is it one single ask really? I don't know.
I want to suggest that we kick it to the committee, and I actually would be happy to participate in the committee. And the reason is that when we were looking at right to counsel, the committee was able to reach out to this national coalition on the civil right to counsel, and they basically had thought this through like 100 times and were able to just like walk us through how you come up with a number. And so I think that a committee level might be the best place to do that kind of sort of work. And I'm happy to participate in that because I have had a number of conversations now with those coalition folks. And then we can come back and have a sense of like, what is the number here? Is it a big ask, or maybe it's a really small ask?
Well, if we have 7 cases going on right now, that number is going to be getting pretty big.
Right. At what stage would they be assigned counsel? Would it be at the early stage or when it is on track to go to a hearing?
It's a great question. I think, each case proceeds a little bit differently, depending on the nature of it. But I would certainly say that if something were to go to mediation, that might be a point at which someone would want to consult an attorney, just so that because I don't get to go to the mediation. We have a separate mediation firm that does that. And so typically I think we don't know what the respondent's going to bring in. I have one that's going to mediation on August 31st. The respondent almost certainly has counsel because counsel was the one that responded to my notice of investigation. The individual I found pro bono counsel for, or assisted her to find pro bono counsel. But that's another instance in which I think, so that's pretty early on, right? Mediation happens, it can happen at any point, but I think that having it accessible throughout the process is important, because the public hearing, that we don't often get to that, but conciliation can happen at any point. So.
And does the investigation involve any kind of deposition or?
Yeah, there's a whole process. I won't go into it here, but yeah, there's a big process of interviewing and rebuttal and evidence gathering and compilation of an investigative report. I'm happy to walk you through it in or out.
My reason, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but if I'm being interviewed for something that is going to be evidence in a case, I feel like I would like counsel.
Sure, people are willing to, people are more than able and have the right to seek counsel at any point. Most respondents, if it's a large company and I'm interviewing somebody that has some clout, like their attorneys will sit in on the conversation while I'm doing the interview. Complainants, on the other hand, are typically individuals who are just bringing forth their complaint, and they provide sworn testimony that we notarize in an affidavit, but they don't use. No one's brought representation to a complainant interview.
Well, this really does make me think we should kick it to a committee, because it sounds like there's some work to do and putting some numbers to it and making putting something specific into our ask of counsel. Did we set a meeting for that committee?
We said we were going to try for the second, but in the early afternoon.
Okay.
That'd be great, Mary, if you could be there
Okay.
to calculate the numbers. You said there's a
Yeah,
formula. I have no idea what
well,
that formula is. If you
it
could tell us,
was-
that'd be great.
it was different because they were talking about right to counsel specifically, and they like it was a product of how many eviction cases are filed in the courts. But I still think there are people we could talk to about this and gather a little bit of information. People who probably have thought this through more than I have. So I'll be glad to join that meeting. Okay. Anything else on that particular resolution? Whew. All right. Oh my, Todd. Next on our agenda, I believe. Sorry, I've got so many pieces of paper going on here. I've flipped over. I think the next thing on the agenda is the human rights ordinance with the FAP revisions.
You've got the legislative
Did
recommendations.
I skip that? Sorry. Okay.
Do we have to do
Yes.
those tonight?
Yes, well, let's talk about that. Sorry, I skipped that accidentally. So next up is 2022 General Assembly legislative recommendations to City Council. I have not been on the commission when we've done this in the past and would love to hear from folks kind of how that has been done, what the process has been, and when those recommendations have been made. Anyone who's been around, participated in that, wants to kind of share, that would be very useful.
I've been around. But I'll tell you, I am stymied as to what kind of legislative proposals we might have been coming up with in the past. The things that I'm personally interested relate totally to election laws. And I don't know if there's any human rights violations, discrimination, although there can be, certainly doing it in other states. But right now, the state of Virginia seems to be doing a fairly excellent job of protecting the franchise for everybody. Although, I don't know, I'm going to throw one out just for the heck of it. They're currently allowing Sunday registration. And only one of two Sundays, not every Sunday registrations. I don't mean registration, I mean early voting for people who want to vote in person at the poll, but not on election day. This in many areas has been considered basically a civil rights issue that there are, I don't know, I've never heard of it being done here, but there are churches in some areas that after church, they load a bus and they take them to the polling place and they do their early voting that day. Right now, it is permissive in Virginia. I could make a case that Virginia's election laws provide for each locality to be required to offer one Sunday prior to the close of in-person voting. Anyway, I'm throwing that one out because that's one of my major issues. And I know that it is an issue in some states where we have made it voluntary, but I wouldn't mind making it required.
If we could just take a step back for a moment and talk about kind of what our process is and has been, just because, you know, I haven't been through this. I'm not sure there are others who haven't been through this. So that is kind of how do we bring suggestions forward and what is our process for kind of evaluating and then voting on them?
So we haven't, since I've been on the commission, had a very elaborate process, Mary. opened it up at a meeting, said, does anyone have any ideas? Thrown out some ideas, said yes or no, and that list has gone forward to city council with little background research or,
Right.
deep deliberation.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, well, I guess that's helpful to know. I mean, I have thought that if it is the view of our city attorney that Charlottesville cannot pass a right to counsel ordinance for whatever reason, then that is a legislative change that I would like us to encourage the city to take on. I know that the city attorney said she couldn't be here this evening. But I think that's something that's that's related to advocacy we're already doing. So I was very interested in following up with that.
Can I ask when the city is going to formalize their legislative agenda?
So I asked that question of the clerk, and the response was I got early fall timeframe. And she also said she has not received any direct communication regarding legislative items, but through meetings she has heard counselors voice concern regarding the eviction moratorium, fare free transportation, and expanding authorization for electronic meetings. She assumes there may be other things under consideration. What I'm understanding is that there's not, I guess Councilors McGill and Snook serve on the legislative committee with City Attorney Robertson. So to my knowledge, they have not met yet, and they don't have an official list of things. And so I'm trying to get ahead of the game so that you all can think about it now. If it's been a little bit confusing, it is one of the things that you have authority to do under the ordinance is provide guidance for the annual legislative agenda. There's no clear time frame for any of that stuff ever. So I'm hoping that I don't think we're too late. It doesn't appear we're too late because the clerk didn't have that sense when she wrote me back. But I think now is the time. If you deliberate on it and want to present some more researched options for consideration by the full commission at the next meeting, I don't think you'll be too late. I hope not, but that's all I know for now.
So Todd, I was writing down as you spoke, and I think I petered out. So I had the eviction moratorium, and what was the other issue? Fare free
transportation, and by which I mean FARE free.
Perfect.
And what is the proposal there? I mean,
no details at all. It was just
Okay.
in the body of an email with no attachment. So I don't have any details as to what they're.
Could a case could be made that maybe another subcommittee, which we need, I'm sure we need more of them, could meet between now and could meet maybe on the 9th or even on the 2nd after the housing committee meets, and just brainstorm some of these things so that we could at least have a small list to bring.
Sue, I'm going to interrupt for a second. I think we have somebody who's trolling us at the moment in the attendees.
I wondered about that.
Yeah. Lasheen, I don't know if you're available, but I do believe that an attendee has access to the chat, which is that was disabled previously, but I don't know. It seems to be on again.
Okay, I just turned it off.
Yep.
Thanks for doing that. Sorry to interrupt you, Sue.
No, I saw that and I'm going, who is that?
So I think I might agree with you, Sue, at the risk of creating yet another meeting, that to have a brief meeting to sort of review that, I think would be useful if we can kind of gather suggestions from folks to actually, talk about. I think if it's a committee meeting of like a couple of us just brainstorming, I'm not sure that will be as fruitful as kind of gathering the ideas from the commission at large.
But we can request input
Yes.
from the commission at large, as long as they know when it's going to be discussed.
Yes, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that makes sense. I'm, it's an ad hoc, probably not a standing committee, but maybe a, one-time committee, but I'm happy to participate in that. Try to put something together that, ideally, relates in some substantial part to issues we're already working on.
Mhm.
So Todd, can we fit in that we have space for yet another committee meeting?
Do you want to try to fit it in on the 2nd? We already have that blocked for two committee meetings at a half an hour, so you're going to be on there anyway, I think. Would you like to add that?
Yeah, I think so. And ideally, if people can do a little bit of thinking in advance and circulate even rough ideas, that would be great.
Mhm.
Great.
All right, and then next up is the Human Rights Ordinance revisions for FAP and other amendments. Todd?
Sorry about that. I dropped it in there mostly as make sure that you're all aware of what's going on. You can read what's already been presented. There's no action to be taken at all other than read it, check it out. If you do see things in there that you want me to think about, let me know. I do believe that what we'll probably end up doing at some point is forming yet another committee, or maybe the housing committee would take this on. I think that might be an appropriate place for it. But right now, what I'm going to do, and I mentioned this in my report, is that I'm going to read through all of Eric's stuff. I got that kind of just before the meeting and I read through it, but I had not time to digest it. So what I will do is draft another version of that and share it back with him, get his feedback, and hopefully we'll be very close. And then at that point, I want maybe the committee to take it and start to really think through what you want council to see. And then obviously we have to take that to the city attorney's office for approval before we take it to council. But that's where all that stands. Nothing more needs to be done, I don't think, but questions are fine.
So no ask of us at this moment.
No, just read and be aware. and if you flag something in there, let me know so that I can make sure I make the changes as soon as you find them.
Okay. Questions or comments about that?
Nope.
Okay. Next up, we have matters by the public. Webinar attendees can use the raise hand function. Phone attendees use *9. We'd love to hear from members of the public.
No hands raised, and the person who had found a way into the chat has left. So I think we just have 2 people left. So.
All right, so next on our agenda, we have commissioner updates. Okay, no updates from tonight, but obviously a lot of work that we will be doing in the next few weeks. And I appreciate everybody's efforts in that regard. Next on our agenda is next steps and adjourn. So discussion of next steps. We obviously have 4 or 5 committee meetings scheduled in the next few weeks. Lots of work there. And we have 2 guest speakers coming to our September meeting who will help walk us through the proposed zoning changes. Any other next steps that folks want to talk about? All right. Well, I thank everybody for.
Did we ever,
Yeah.
sorry, did we ever hear back from Chief Brackney?
She did respond to me. But I hadn't asked her for a particular thing. It was mostly a thank you letter. Because I hadn't sent the policies because we weren't clear on whether those were actually the final versions. But I did get a nice response from her.
Speaking of that, is that a next step for somebody that's going to, some of us were going to try to research and find what we can on that.
Yeah, I think it was you and Catherine who were going to look through old emails and see what you have.
Probably,
Is that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's always helpful for me to see my name in next steps. That way I know I'm supposed to be doing something.
Yeah, I like when Todd puts the part of the minutes in red, so I know what I have agreed to do. Any other follow-up, final words? Well, thank you all for being here on an August evening when, so many folks are on vacation, but appreciate everybody's work. And I think that it is time to adjourn.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. All
Everyone.
right, we'll talk with you all soon.